you. In January and February, I spent 3 weeks in Hokkaido with 10 other photographers, 2 of whom are in this room, Skip Klein and Ed Kenny, friends of mine and fellow photographers, fellow travelers. In those 3 weeks, I made 3 photographs. 3, I have decided, after watching the Euro Cup 2024, 3 is a large number. You can win the Euro Cup with the number 3. This is one of those photographs. As I explained in the classroom today, a photograph like this is rare to me because it's of a pensive person, someone who's thinking, not texting. It's her, but it's everything else that's around her. The person and her situation. And in it, she is thoughtful. I have a long-standing, lifelong project called Seeing Gardens. It's the photography of non-garden gardens. These are artificial flowers inside a snow-covered synthetic geodesic dome in Sapporo. These 2 pictures have joined with 2 others made in 2019 when Arthur, George Nobecci, and I made a 2.5-week trip through Japan on trains, the all-time buddy trip. Those pictures will be joined together with a couple of others and form the photographic poem that I'm composing on Hokkaido for the retrospective book that I've been working on for 10 years. People do not go to Hokkaido for the architecture. They go, if they go, as photographers, for the bird life. It's exotic, and compelling. This is a photograph by Skip Klein of a sea eagle. And this is a photograph by Ed Kenny of a sea eagle. Ed is a dedicated avian photographer, and it shows up in this photograph. He came for 3 weeks, but the epicenter of his interest as a photographer and as a person was in this moment when we witnessed a gathering of sea eagles. I was there on the same boat. And you may well ask me where my photograph of sea eagles is. It does not exist, because while they were photographing the rare and beautiful sea eagle, I was photographing, as I always do, the structure of the breakwater that we were parked at. This is that breakwater, which has, in miniature form, some sea eagles. But it's really about the form that I spent my time on. And why? Because I'm a structuralist. And that is, I respond to structure. And I also respond to gray, white, black. And so the combination of the palette and the structure held my attention. And then the boat that we were on began to pull away from the breakwater. And now I was very excited, not by the sea eagle or the gull, but by the breakwater, the snow that was on it, the slim vision we have of the sea and the great sky, gray sky. And why? Because this is my palette, and the horizon is the principal line of my aesthetic graphic, and has been all my life. These are the colors of my childhood and the line of my life, the horizon line. And so as we pulled away from the breakwater, my interest didn't diminish, it grew. And as we encountered a stairwell filled with snow, I got more excited. And the last picture in this frame is the best photograph that I made in Hokkaido in 3 weeks. I cannot take credit for the fact that the seagull is in the downstroke, the full downstroke of its flight. I can't fully take credit for its placement in the photograph. I can take credit for everything else. The gray sky, the black breakwater, the black reflection of it, and the snow-filled staircase, which mimics enigmatically but fascinatingly to me the tips of its feathers. Did I see it coming? Yes. Did I time it? Hopefully. Did I time the downstroke so that the tips were in relationship to the breakwater? I did not. But I have an intuitive sense, after 60 years of experience, of how things can be, how they might be, how they should be. The picture has a place of prominence in the retrospective book that I've been working on these many years. It's the lead picture for the essay or the chapter on Hokkaido. And what is that chapter? It is not a story. It has no facts about Kyoto. Pardon me, of Hokkaido. It is a poem, and this is the poem as it stands now. Held together mainly by palette, but also by an ineffable sense of Hokkaido's northern nature. And by northern, I mean near Siberia. This is the north. I grew up in the north and feel it's one of the things on this earth that I know. And so I want to live up to, not to Hokkaido, but to its northern nature. As I said, the other episode of this year has been to delve even more deeply into the retrospective book, something I've been working on, almost amusingly, for 10 years. I have this to say about working on a book. Work on it. For when it comes out, you will not look at it. You will not. I was editor of my high school yearbook, and that year, and the day that I saw it, I thought, I will look at this yearbook every day for the rest of my life. It's that meaningful, it's that beautiful, it's that essential. And I did not look at it every day for the rest of my life. I haven't looked at it in 30 years, maybe 40. And I will not look at the retrospective book when it comes out. You will. The reader will. If you are the maker of a book, love that experience. The experience of making the book. That is yours, and only yours. That's your book experience. And so when people ask me, when's the book coming out? I say, soon. But I've said that for 5 years. And I hope that the answer is never next year or next week. Because when I'm done making the book will, for me, will be over. Then it will be yours. And I hope that some of what I've put into it, some of the love, change, evolution, refinement that I've put into the book will come through to you. It has to me already, because in 2019, this book was ready for publication, committed. I was taking it to the publisher on an airplane, and COVID struck. It's the best thing that ever happened to me and to the book. I have a spiritual crisis with the book. It's too big. It's 400 pages. This is a gross offense to my heroes, Dorothea Lange, whose slender book, with her name on the cover, and only her name, came out in 1965. I was a sophomore or junior at the University of Kentucky and struggling to find my way in life. And her book became my blueprint. Not only for the size of it, but may I say, for the size of it. It was slender. Every page was packed with her humanity, her vision, and her photographs. If I could reduce my very large library of photographic books to one volume, it would be this book. And it is slender. And what am I going to say to E.B. White? I was an English major. I read The Elements of Style. I know it by heart. I'm a writer. My writing is in my book. What would the taciturn, compact, concise E.B. White think about my book? Could I sit with him in his writer's hut and explain to him why I came out with a 400-page book? I could not. In 2019, my book had the wrong cover. It had the wrong title, it had the wrong subtitle, and worst of all, it had the wrong photograph on the cover. The figure, in the words of my friend, was akimbo. And he said, put the right picture of that figure on the screen and on the cover of the book. The truth is, as Arthur knows, and Carrie knows, there's been very many iterations of just the cover. And why? I want to do it right. I want to live up to myself. And so I settled on a recent photograph, a photograph made on the trip that Arthur and George made on the train, the 3-week train journey through Japan. It's a photograph of a woman named Momo Kosaka, a college student in Northwest Japan. I've written a 1,600 word essay about the making of this photograph because it involved every technical, diplomatic, emotional, cultural, gender challenge that I have faced in my life. I sucked it up many times, sitting across from her to make this picture. I spoke to her. I concealed my intent. I concealed my existence. 50 years of skill at stealth is involved in this photograph. But it's my palette and my composition, and most of all, she embodies the ineffable essence of the appeal of Japan to me. There is something in the soul, in the aesthetics of Japan that is ineffable, and I have long wanted to photograph it. And she embodied it in her bearing and in her manner and in her being. And for 2 years, that was the cover of this book. And then it was replaced by me, by a photograph that went back to the first month of my career at National Geographic in 1970. July 1970 was the first month. It is of a father and son who are fishing on the Grand Banks of Newfoundland. And I learned photography from my father. So I am the son, and the son is in the foreground. But as anybody who knows my photography knows, I am concentrating on the father in the dory, in the distance, because the North Atlantic must raise him above the horizon line. And in that afternoon, it happened once. And this picture was the lead picture of the Newfoundland story, which, if it hadn't been published, would have been a failure for me, possibly the end of my career at National Geographic. So the picture has significance. And a senior photographer, James P. Blair, a staff photographer at National Geographic, came to me after he saw this published as the lead, and he said, accusingly, with his finger on my chest, he said, "You don't know how good this photograph is." He was right, but he was also wrong. I did know. And that's why it's on the cover. But of course, I mourned this. It was a 2019 picture. I had never been to Japan in 1970. This is in 2019. Shouldn't the picture on this volume be new, relevant to who I am now? No, I decided, go with the timeless picture. And then 1 month ago, someone, a dear friend of mine and a dear friend of Arthur's, said to me over cocktails, when she heard about the crisis of the 400-page book, she said, "Sam, there is a natural division in your life. It's the years of National Geographic and the years since. They break evenly. They break conceptually, They break technically. One era is analog, the other is digital. 1 year you were an employee, one era you were an employee, 1 year you were independent. Haven't you thought about 2 volumes? And the answer is yes. And for those of you who know about book building, I have this little gem because I care about books. And I know that my dear friend Skip Klein cares about books. And there are others of you who know books and love books. So I'm going to talk now about the half title page, which is the very small photograph that you encounter in a book with no text. It sits alone by itself on the single sheet of paper before you encounter the title page. It's called the half title page. And I pay great attention to that because it's a symbol of something. It's a free go for the photographer or the author. And here are the half title pages of the 2 volume Sam Abell retrospective, soon to be in your bookstore. The half title page of volume 1 will be a repeat of the cover, but with the full surround of the cardboard mount at the same size of a Kodak slide. So you could pick it off the page, 1 to 1. It will look like a slide, the slide most of us grew up with. And on it will be the publishing history and the technical data of that photograph. And the half title page of the second volume will be the cover picture with all of the digital metadata. The same thing. Both half title pages will convey the era of their creation. And now, as Elizabeth said, I have received honors this year, including this week. This week, it was announced that I have been inducted into the International Photography Hall of Fame. This is my page. If you go to the International Photography Hall of Fame, you will find this page. I immodestly show you this photograph for one reason: the credit line. Tintype of Sam Abell by Carrie Wares. Tintype made Tintype made not far from where we are right now, 5 years ago, by Carrie. She said, "You know, Sam, you can't smile during a tintype. You can't grin." And I said, "What am I supposed to do?" And she said, "Smile with your eyes." And I've never forgotten that. So I'm doing it right now. You know Carrie as an administrator. I hope you know her as a photographer, but I know her as an artist. And I own one of her seminal pieces of art. This is from her MFA project at the University of Arizona, and it's called Shot. It's a triptych that shows shooters, target shooters in Arizona. Carrie's project was to go into the desert to encounter shooters and to have them talk about shooting, why they shot. Photographically, she wanted to conjoin the Civil War and all the wars of our past with the culture wars, which were current and still are. She wanted to engage them, to build bridges instead of walls by having this conversation about war and about shooting. She made the tintypes, and then she invited the individuals that she photographed to shoot their tintype. Not all of them did, but some did. And all three of these tintypes have been shot at by the characters, the individuals portrayed. This, to me, is art. She is a photographer of our time. I cherish this. It's in a place of honor in my house because I know the artist and I believe that she is an artist, and this is proof of it. Meanwhile, back to me. As Elizabeth said, I learned about this honor this week. And if you're ever inducted into a Hall of Fame and you don't know who else is going in your class, that will be uppermost on your mind. And that was announced a couple of days ago. This Hall of Fame, located in St. Louis, has 134 inductees, including our own Paul Caponegro. To be joined together on the same class with Paul Caponegro is improbable to me. And the reason is, he's the photographer who had the greatest influence on me as a young man. In college, I had a girlfriend who knew I was influenced by Caponegro. I couldn't stop talking about his photographs and showing them to her. She wrote him a letter, and she said, "I'm a poet, my boyfriend is a photographer, neither of us have much money. But he is enchanted by one photograph of yours. I don't know what you would charge me, but I will pay to have this print for his birthday." The print had a great effect on me as a young man because it showed me the possibilities of photography. I was an English major, as I said. And if you're an English major, you know about the phrase, to hold the universe in a grain of sand. That's an image. It's not real. But to hold the universe on the skin of an apple, that is real. So I salute Paul Caponegro, and I humbly join him in the Hall of Fame. And now for the last chapter. My friend and Arthur's friend, George Nobecci, is in Japan. And he's trying to create a relationship, a successful one, with Fujifilm. He needs a platform. Arthur and I, like we do in our teaching, we are encouraging. George called me and said, "I have this idea for Fujifilm, that they will come to Hagi, Japan, where you, Sam, photographed in 1980. We will go back to Hagi, and we will walk around with Fuji's new camera in our hands. We will be filmed, and it will be a promo for the new Fuji camera. But it will also be a mentor and student film. What do you say? I said, great. I will do this for you, George, because I want to help you. I didn't say this. I'm saying it to you. My motive was to enhance and strengthen the relationship of George with Fuji. There wasn't that much in it for me. That was especially so when they flew me over coach class. 14 hours in economy. In the 13th hour, I was cooked. But I looked out the window and I saw something that was sublime. And that only happens a couple times a year. And I lifted my camera to the window and I made a picture which is going to be in my retrospective book, which is hard to get into. This is that photograph. It's about the beauty of travel, which no one, by the way, ever talks about anymore. The aesthetics of travel. They exist. We once believed in them. We no longer do. But I have to, because I'm a traveler. I have to believe that there's beauty in travel. And so I've dedicated myself to getting through the anguish, the ordeal, and seeing the aesthetics of travel. And in my 1 week in Japan with George, this is the best photograph I made at the absolute low point of my experience. What happened in Hagi, Japan was not what George imagined. George imagined a mentor-student relationship movie. It very quickly devolved into Sam Abell Returns to Hagi, Japan, where I met the descendants of the people that I had photographed in 1980. All descendants except one. What you are about to see is a clip of the promotional Fuji video of Sam Abell Returns to Hagi. My wife says this is the best video that's ever been made of me for the first 3 seconds of it. She said, that's all I needed to see to know that they got you. I said, what do you mean? And she said, the first 3 seconds of this video show you doing nothing but looking. You're staring down something. You're staring down a detail. And she is right. My father taught me to compose the picture and wait. If you follow that practice, you will spend a great deal of time looking, staring, gazing, critically detailing what you see. And that's what's going on at the beginning of this video. What's going on at the end of it is why I and Arthur are photographers. So I made a picture here in 1980, and there was a monk or priest holding a candle, and there were candles all along the walkway here, going up both sides. And just when we started to make the picture, when it was twilight, a wind started to blow and blew out about half the candles. And when you see the photograph, it looks like every candle is lit, but there are gaps. And what the gaps do is make the picture real. And it goes along with the sense of this place, this history of this place, a relic place. Still alive to me as a photographer, because I like this sense. I like this sense of imperfection and decay and time. I photographed a monk, for example, that I had not seen in 43 years. We returned to the temple. I did not give a thought he would still be there. Honestly, the temple seemed deserted to me. An assistant, a woman, came to us and said, "The monk would like to have tea with you." When he appeared, I instantly saw that it was the same man. Much older, his wife had died recently, and he was feeling his own mortality. That vanished when he realized that standing in front of him was the photographer who had made the candlelit picture 43 years earlier. And so we celebrated that moment. We celebrated time and life, the fact that we were alive, both of us, going strong and still doing what we did then.